In the popular imagination, General George S. Patton Jr. is a man born for the speed of the tank. But the foundation of Patton's tactical genius wasn't forged in the turret of a Sherman in 1944. It was forged in the bloody static mud of France in 1918. During World War I, a young George Patton commanded a newly formed tank brigade during the Meuse-Argonne offensive. He saw firsthand the ultimate failure of methodical warfare. He watched thousands of young men get mowed down by German machine guns because they were fighting a war of lines, a war of inches, and a war of waiting. Patton himself was severely wounded in that offensive, lying in a shell crater for hours, bleeding, while the battle stagnated around him. That trauma created a core belief that would define his entire life. Caution is a butcher. Now Patton realized that when an army stops to dig in, it hands the initiative to the enemy. It allows the enemy to aim their artillery, reinforce their lines, and dictate the terms of the dying. He swore that if he ever commanded an army again, he would never fight a static war. His doctrine became incredibly simple. A good plan, violently executed now, is better than a perfect plan executed next week. To Patton, speed wasn't just a tactic to win territory. It was a literal shield that saved the lives of his men. To understand why Patton's speed was so devastating to the Germans, you have to understand how the German military mind worked. The Wehrmacht was built on the concept of the counterattack. When the Allies punched a hole in the German lines, the standard German doctrine was to rapidly form a Kampfgruppe, a battle group, and smash into the Allied flanks before they could consolidate their gains. Generals like Omar Bradley and Bernard Montgomery were terrified of this. When they advanced, they would stop after a few miles, dig in, wait for supplies, and secure their flanks to prepare for the inevitable German counterpunch. Patton looked at this and thought it was madness. He had read the books written by Heinz Guderian and Erwin Rommel. He knew that the German counterattack relied on time. They needed 24 to 48 hours to assemble their armor, coordinate their artillery, and strike. Patton's solution? Deny them the 48 hours. By moving relentlessly, day and night, Patton ensured that by the time the German commanders had organized their counterattack, the Third Army was already 30 miles behind them, destroying their supply depots and cutting their communication wires. When asked about protecting his flanks, Patton famously roared, "Flanks are something for the enemy to worry about, not us. I don't want to get any messages saying we are holding our position. We are advancing constantly, and we are not interested in holding on to anything except the enemy's balls." The ultimate proof of Patton's philosophy came in August 1944 during Operation Cobra. After months of brutal grinding warfare in the hedgerows of Normandy, the Allies finally blew a hole in the German lines at Avranches. While other commanders cautiously pushed their infantry through the gap, Patton unleashed his armor like a pack of starving wolves. So he ordered his tank commanders to drive until the engines seize or the tracks fall off. He told his men to bypass strong points. If a German town was heavily defended, Patton's orders were simple. Don't attack it. Drive around it. Leave it for the infantry to clean up later. Just keep moving east. The result was total psychological collapse for the German defenders. The German high command couldn't draw a front line on their maps because Patton's tanks were moving faster than the radio reports coming into Berlin. German generals were captured while eating breakfast in chateaus they thought were 50 miles behind the front. Patton's speed created a paralysis of command. The enemy couldn't fight because they didn't know where the Americans were, and by the time they found out, the Americans were already gone. That this was Blitzkrieg perfected, turned against its very creators. But Patton's obsession with speed created a massive political problem. The Allied supply chain couldn't keep up. The famous Red Ball Express, a fleet of thousands of supply trucks, was stretched to its absolute breaking point, trying to feed the Third Army's insatiable appetite for gasoline. Supreme Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower, trying to balance the egos of his generals, ordered Patton to halt at the Meuse River. Eisenhower wanted to give the fuel to Montgomery for a push in the north. For Patton, an order to stop was a physical agony. So he cheated. Patton employed a tactic his staff called the rock soup method. The old fable goes that a starving traveler convinces a village to make him soup by boiling a magical rock, slowly tricking them into adding carrots, on potatoes and meat until a real soup is made. Patton did the same thing with combat. Ordered to hold his position, Patton would send a small armored cavalry unit across a river on a reconnaissance mission. Inevitably, they would take fire. Patton would then call Bradley and say, "Brad, my boys are getting shot to pieces on the other side of the river. I have to send a battalion to pull them out." Once the battalion was across, they would accidentally capture a bridgehead. Patton would then call command and say, "Well, we have a bridgehead now. It would be a military disaster to give it back. I need fuel and ammunition to hold it." He consistently tricked the Supreme Command into supporting advances they had explicitly forbidden. He knew that once his men were moving, the political pressure to supply them would override Eisenhower's cautious planning. He literally hijacked the war effort through sheer, unauthorized momentum. The moment that cemented Patton's doctrine of speed into military legend occurred in December 1944. The Battle of the Bulge. The Germans launched a massive surprise offensive through the Ardennes, shattering the American lines and surrounding the 101st Airborne at Bastogne. Eisenhower called his top commanders to a freezing bunker in Verdun. The situation was catastrophic. Eisenhower looked at Patton and asked how long it would take for the Third Army to disengage from its current fight in the Saar region, turn 90 degrees north, and attack the German flank. The standard military answer was 2 to 3 weeks. You cannot simply stop an army of 250,000 men, turn it sideways, and march it through a blizzard. The logistics alone were considered physically impossible. Patton stood up and said, "I can attack with 3 divisions in 48 hours." The room went dead silent. British officers scoffed. Bradley thought Patton was grandstanding for the history books. But Patton wasn't boasting. He had already given the warning orders before he even arrived at the meeting. Because his entire army was built on a culture of relentless speed, his staff officers had already mapped the roads. Within hours, the Third Army was moving. Men drove day and night through freezing snow, without sleep, without hot food. Patton's belief in speed saved the 101st Airborne. He proved that an army operating at maximum velocity could achieve the impossible, shattering the German offensive and breaking the back of the Wehrmacht forever. Despite his successes, Patton was heavily criticized by his peers and the press. They called him blood and guts. And the joke among the soldiers was, "Our blood, his guts." Critics argued that his reckless speed caused unnecessary casualties. They pointed to his frontal assaults in Metz and his refusal to wait for artillery support. But Patton's private journals reveal a grim, highly mathematical calculus. Patton tracked casualties obsessively. He argued that the longer a battle lasts, the more men die from artillery, disease, and trench foot. He wrote to his wife, "I am accused of being a butcher, but by moving fast, I prevent the enemy from bringing up their big guns. I prevent them from laying minefields. A fast advance might cost 500 men in a single day. A slow advance will cost 100 men a day, but it will take a month." You do the math. History proved him right. When you compare the casualty rates of the Third Army per square mile of territory taken against the cautious, grinding advances of Montgomery's 21st Army Group, Patton's method was mathematically superior. His speed was terrifying to experience, but it was statistically the safest way to fight a war. He didn't want his men to die for their country. He wanted them to move fast enough to make the other poor bastard die for his. By March 1945, the race was on to cross the Rhine River, the final natural barrier into the heart of Germany. Field Marshal Montgomery was planning Operation Plunder, a massive, highly publicized, meticulously staged crossing involving paratroopers, thousands of artillery pieces, and weeks of preparation. It was the epitome of cautious, set-piece warfare. Patton despised it. He viewed the Rhine not as a mythical barrier, but as just another river to cross without stopping. Without asking for permission, without a massive artillery barrage, and without a single paratrooper, Patton ordered the 5th Infantry Division to quietly paddle across the river at Oppenheim in the dead of night. They caught the Germans completely by surprise. The next morning, Patton walked halfway across a pontoon bridge, unzipped his trousers, and famously urinated into the Rhine River. He then sent a telegram to Bradley that read, "I have just pissed into the Rhine. For God's sake, send some gasoline." He had crossed the river a full day before Montgomery's massive operation even began, suffering only a handful of casualties. It was the ultimate vindication of his philosophy. He proved that surprise and speed could shatter a defensive line far more effectively than a month of cautious planning and bombardment. General George S. Patton Jr. was a difficult man. He was arrogant, deeply flawed, and a political nightmare for his superiors. But against the most fearsome military machine of the 20th century, he was exactly the weapon the Allies needed. He understood that war is a chaotic, terrifying breakdown of human order, and the only way to survive it is to move faster than the chaos. He trusted speed over caution because he knew that in the brutal math of combat, hesitation is a death sentence. He didn't just defeat the German army, he outran them, outthought them, and ultimately, he broke their spirit. What do you think? Was Patton's relentless drive the key to winning the war in Europe? Or was he a dangerous maverick who just got lucky? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want to know what the Germans actually thought when they saw Patton's tanks bursting through their lines, click the video on your screen right now.